changed. We were going to enter into a new era. And it began one Sunday in which these two young married people showed up at our Kingdom Hall. And as soon as I saw them, I did not have a good feeling. I said, "Who's that?" And the person said, "Oh, that's a new couple. They're visiting from back east. They're thinking of serving where the need is great." And I said, "Oh, well, sure enough, a month later, it was announced that these people lived here now, and they were going to be in our congregation." The idea was that they had moved to the area because they wanted to serve where the need was greater. But to me, it didn't make sense, because I said, "Well, we live in a suburb of Wichita, and our Kingdom Hall, we have 5 elders, 3 ministerial servants, and a congregation of 70 people. Our territory is worked every 2 years. Why are they here? Why don't they go, if they want to work where the need is great, why don't they go further west or further north?" And they said, "Oh, well, the husband wouldn't be able to find work out there." And I said, "Oh, okay, but it just seems like it defeats the purpose." Anyway, well, following that, the next Saturday I was out in service, and sure enough, going to be working in a group with these people, and I quickly found them to be very obnoxious, and I started seeing what their shtick was. This couple, their names was Donovan and Sheila. They're about 30 years old. And they fancied themselves metropolitan. I'm sure you've met some of these metropolitan witnesses that kind of have that elite JW attitude. I remember we were out in service driving down the streets of our town, and they'd look at houses and say, "How quaint, how small town." And I came to see what their gimmick was. That they were going to be the big city JWs, and that we were the country mice, and we were all going to be impressed by them. But the thing was, they didn't come from LA or New York. They're from Milwaukee. So, excuse me, but I didn't really buy the big city routine that they were trying to do. I also came to discover that both of them had personality issues. I noticed this when I would be sharing stories and experiences with the service group, and after every experience that I shared, the husband, Donovan, had to one-up me. It was a personality tick he had. Every time I said something, he had to do me one better, and he would essentially copy the same experience, except he would change it into something that happened to him with a more favorable outcome. And it just worked out better for him. And I even tested this out at one point, that the wife Sheila said, "Well, Tom, what do you do in your free time after you've served Jehovah, after you finish serving Jehovah for the day?" And I said, "Oh, well, my pride and joy is a mahjong table. I have a very beautiful mahjong table with carved ivory pieces." And Donovan immediately piped right up and said, "I also have a mahjong table." And Sheila said, "He does. It's splendorous. It's worth $1,500. Well, I don't have a mahjong table, and neither does Donovan. And that's the whole point of, that exercise. I just confirmed to myself that I confirmed my suspicion that he is a narcissistic maniac, and that he and his wife are compulsive liars. On this day out in service, it is getting to be, we're working in this car group. It gets to be about 11:25 a.m., and I'm thinking the service day is kind of winding down. Donovan and Sheila announced that they would like to stop for a break. And I'm like, we don't have to make this a long morning, but they insist on going to break. But they don't want to go to McDonald's. They want to go to this Denny's type restaurant. Now, if you're not a JW or ex-JW, let me explain this to you. Jehovah's Witnesses, out in service, go to McDonald's. You're a Jehovah's Witness, you go to McDonald's. Everyone knows this. Even the people who work at McDonald's know this. JW McDonald's is how it works. Well, they decided to break tradition, and they wanted to go to this restaurant where you sit down with menus, and then a waitress comes and everything. It's 11:25. It'd take you at least an hour. And then after it's over, you have to go do a couple more calls to complete the morning out service. Shit, it'd be 2 o'clock by the time we were done. But they got their way, and we go to this restaurant. While we're sitting there, Sheila says, I know that you're all probably thinking of giving us gas money. Well, I want you to know you don't have to do that. Just pick up the ticket today and that'll be fine. These people ate $30 of food. They didn't spend $30 on gas. Well, this morning in service was very revealing to me, and I came to see what this new era our congregation was entering into, that they were going to reign over us like Jesus Christ in his millennial reign, and they were going to be our new masters of the congregation, and that they were, instead of presumably coming to help us, I saw that they came to help themselves to us and our Midwestern hospitality. And that was kind of the whole idea here. And it was kind of a repeating thing that I remember they even had a get-together or a housewarming party or whatever you want to call it. And they even sent out invitations to the entire, everyone in the hall saying, well, we're having a get-together at our house. And I didn't go. I said, oh no, I crumpled that up and threw it in the trash. Well, the next day, that was on a Saturday, the next day at the meeting, somebody I was talking to said, oh, I didn't see you at the Donovan and Sheila's get-together. And I said, no, I didn't go. How did it turn out? And he said, well, when we got there, I walked in the backyard and I saw some sheets of plywood stacked up there. Donovan was going to have us help him build a shed. And I said, you don't say, really? And he said, yeah, well, the sisters went inside and apparently Sheila had some wallpaper for them to hang up in there. And I said, and were there any refreshments served at this get-together? And they said, oh yeah, they had a pitcher of Kool-Aid there. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be going to any of those get-togethers. Glad you had a good time at that get-together, though. And, well, this was just kind of their modus operandi. And I just steered clear of it, but it did... I guess JWs are just a glutton for punishment because they kept doing it. There was a single sister at our Kingdom Hall, a low-income single sister at our hall, and she had kids. Well, she wanted to have a get-together at her house, and she invited about 35 people or whatever, and down in the basement of her house, they had a potluck, where they set up a couple of tables, and it's just like a buffet thing there, and they all watch some game together or something, and Donovan and Sheila show up there late, and they say, oh, sorry, we can't stay long. We just came to stop by, but we wish we could stay, but we have to go. And so they hang out there for about 25 minutes with everyone, and they say, we're sorry we have to run. We'll just make a plate for ourselves before we have to hit the road. And the thing is, they had brought this macaroni salad. They brought a plate of macaroni salad to contribute to the potluck ceremony there. But then they go out to their cars, and they come in with about 5 Tupperware containers. And they start filling up these Tupperware containers from the buffet line. They clean out the food. Yes, they brought macaroni and salad. They brought macaroni salad, and then they cleaned out the entire buffet, filled up these... They took enough food for a week and left everyone else high and dry. Well, that was just kind of the way it was going to work. And this went on for literally months and years. This was the new reality of the congregation. People getting crapped all over by Sheila and Donovan, these metropolitan JWs that came to save our world. Well, I didn't care. I just steered clear of them. Look, I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of shit go down. I've been around a lot of shitty people. I'm used to it as a JW at this point. I just steer clear of them. I don't really have anything to do with them. And I didn't really care either until Donovan did manage to finally get it. He went out of his way and found a way to get on my bad side. It occurred at the end of service one Saturday, in which it was noon, everyone had returned to the Kingdom Hall, was getting out of their cars, and I was returning to my car, and this family pulls up in their SUV. It's the family that had invited me over to their house last night. This was Saturday. Friday night, I had gone to this family's house. They had invited me over, and I sat there with their kids, and we watched a movie together. And it was a movie I had rented. Perfectly innocent movie. About kids playing on a soccer team. It had Will Ferrell in it. It was rated G. A rated G movie. Well, anyway, the dad of the family rolls down the window and said, "Have the video here. You forgot to take it with you." I said, "Thank you. I'll return it to the DVD store." I look over at the other end of the parking lot, and Donovan is standing there, looking at me like this. Whatever. I get in my car and drive away. Well, the following week, during the Thursday night meeting, Donovan, who's a ministerial servant, I'm also a ministerial servant at this point, but Donovan that evening had the privilege of giving the local announcements. It's the smallest part on the meeting, by the way. The smallest, most insignificant part. It's a 4-minute part at the beginning of the second half of the meeting in which you make the local announcements. It's exactly what it sounds like. If someone has died in the congregation, if somebody's grandma died, you announce that. If there's literature that somebody needs to pick up at the back counter, you announce that. It's the local announcements. Here's what it's not. It's not the local needs. That's a different part. It's usually given by an elder. Donovan's a ministerial servant, and he is not assigned to that duty. But Donovan decides to take it upon himself to give his own miniature local needs part during this 4 minutes that he has been given on the stage. And he uses the allotted time to ask the congregation to look up a scripture about guarding your feet in Jehovah's house. Everyone turns there and reads it, and he said, "What does it mean to guard our feet in Jehovah's house?" And he pauses for a long time. Looks very serious. And he said, "Would this include exchanging and returning DVDs on Jehovah's property?" Brothers and sisters, let's be very careful to guard our feet in Jehovah's house. And then he lifts up his Bible with one hand and closes it shut and walks off the stage. Unbelievable. What a cad. Well, this innocent family. He made this, I don't care about me, he made this poor family feel like shit after they went out in service all morning, trying to make the dad of this friggin' family feel guilty after he takes his family out in service, brings them to the meeting, to the Kingdom Hall, never miss a meeting. Well, anyway, after the meeting, I get up from my seat and I'm walking down the aisle. Donovan is standing there talking to someone, and he looks over at me, and he steps out into the aisle and extends his hand like this. And I say, you put that back in your pocket. And I continue walking to the back of the hall. Well, I go to the coat room and I get my book bag out, and I walk out again, and he's standing there again with his hand out like this. I said, "What part of no don't you understand?" And I walk past him and I go out to the parking lot. You know, it's nighttime. I go out to my car, get in there, and I'm going to drive away. Well, he runs out into the parking lot, and he comes up to the passenger side of my car like he wants to talk to me. And I roll down the window, and he leans in and he said, Hey, buddy, it just seemed like you're a little upset there." And I said, "What's it to you?" And he said, "Well, I hope you didn't take offense. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way. I just feel like we need to guard our feet in Jehovah's house." And I said, "Well, here's the problem, Donovan. You're not guarding your hand on my car." And he said, "Huh?" I said, "Your hand is touching my car without permission. You didn't guard your hand on my car." And he goes, "Oh." And he goes, "Well, that's not as serious." And I said, "You know what, Donovan? You're very good at extracting the straw from other people's eyes. Congratulations." And I hit the reverse and I back up and drive out of there. And that was the That was the last dealing I ever had with Donovan. From that point on, I treated him like it was disfellowshipped. Here's the thing. You can be a Jehovah's Witness, you can be an obnoxious Jehovah's Witness. And I've known plenty. But once you start being a JW that persecutes other JWs, once you start shitting on other Jehovah's Witnesses for your own glory or whatever is going on with you, you are disfellowshipped to me. You are dead to me. And I have no use for you. And that was my policy with Donovan and Sheila from that point on. And I had nothing to do with them. And time passed in our congregation. In fact, months and years did pass. Donovan eventually was promoted to elder, which we were approximately the same. He was a few years older than me. We're kind of in the same age range there. He was a butt kisser. And through his persistent, just butt smooching of the circuit overseer, he made passionate love to this guy's butt. And for that reason, of course, he was given the privilege of becoming an elder at a young age. He was like 32. Well, immediately after gaining this promotion to being an elder, he wanted to sit on a judicial committee. It was the very first thing he wanted to do. Now, he could have said, I'm 30, I don't have any experience. Maybe I should get a little experience under my belt before I sit in judgment of another person's life. But no, he insisted on jumping right into it, and he wanted in on this unfolding scandal that was happening in our congregation. Our congregation was in the midst of probably its biggest drama of all time. It involved a brother in our hall named John, who himself used to be an elder at one time. He had to step down because of a personality issue he had. But anyway, he was over at his Bible study's house one evening, and his Bible study says, "Can I show you something?" And he said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, before I started studying and came into the truth, I used to be on a dating website." And John said, "I know." And he said, "Well, I don't go on there anymore, but I still get notifications from them in the email." And John said, "I understand." And he said, "Well, I just wanted you to see this email I got." And he turns on the computer, and John looks in and he said, "That woman almost looks like my wife." It's not her, though. She's a pioneer. And his Bible said, he said, yeah, sure looks like her, though. Well, anyway, after that point, John began following his wife. He began tailing her. She worked second shift at this packaging company, and he starts tailing her this one night when she leaves work. Well, she drives to this house. She drives to this strange man's house, and she goes inside for about an hour, and then comes back out. Well, he busts her. And he's got his oldest son there in the car with him. It's the second witness. It's a done deal. She was caught in the act, and immediately there was a judicial committee. John had a judicial committee formed against his wife, and he was very anxious about the whole thing. When it was over, he called Donovan on the phone and said, "Well, what's the outcome?" And he said, "The committee voted, and your wife is going to be reproved." John says, "You mean disfellowshipped?" And he said, "No, the committee has decided to reprove her." And he said, "Look, John used to be an elder, and he knows how this works. She didn't confess. She didn't come to the elders. According to the dating site, this has been going on for months, that she had been, cheating on him, and she had been caught in the act. She wasn't repentant." But Donovan explained to him that the elders had talked to her, and I guess she started crying and talked about how John's neurotic personality had driven her away and into another man's arms. And look, he's not an easy guy to be around. He really is neurotic. And the elders took that into account and said that in this moment of weakness, she had been driven away by John's personality. John was enraged by this. He felt that the local elders, specifically Donovan, whom he had never gotten along with, didn't like him. didn't like him, and so they were going to let his wife off the hook when she had done this, because they didn't like him personally. And he took great offense to this, and he was absolutely outraged. But nevertheless, Donovan told him, look, you may not like the decision, but we're the elders here. And we did this by the book. The committee voted, and we stand by our votes, by the book, whether you like it or not. And, well, following that, John and his wife did separate. She moved to the next town over, about 20 miles away, and she started going to a hall there. And John began divorce proceedings against her. This happened in the springtime of the year. Time passed. We go to it's time now for the special day assembly that's in December. I walk in, I remember this assembly. I walk in and I say, oh no. I look across the hall. This is at the Cotillion in Wichita. I look across the meeting hall there. By the stage is John's wife. She's sitting there at a contribution box. She's assigned to a contribution box. I am mortified by this. Everyone else seems to be walking past like it's completely normal. But anyway, right after me, I'm looking around for John because I wanted to warn him. But he walks in right after me and he sees the same thing. His wife. Earlier this year, she had slept with another man. Now it's December and she's doing a contribution box. She's sitting there in her dress like a JW woman doing a contribution box. John walks in, sees this. He snaps in his mind. He goes ballistic. He starts shoving people out of the way, making his way through the crowd. He's looking for the circuit overseer. The circuit overseer is standing there getting ready for his talks. He's talking to people. John comes up to him and says, I have to talk to you now. I need to talk to you in this empty room over here. And the circuit overseer said, I'm busy. This is a circuit. And he said, now, I want to talk to you. He goes in there with the circuit overseer. And he starts just unloading on him. And the circuit overseer calms him down and says, now, John, you may not like it, but the terms of your wife's reproval were that she was going to lose privileges for 6 months. 6 months has elapsed, and she is in good standing again, believe it or not, even though that may not seem right to you. She is in good standing and eligible for any privilege that any other sister has. John said, she slept with another man this year. And the circuit overseer says, John, this was done by the book. You're an elder, or you used to be an elder, and you understand this. Well, John is she's so grieved, he leaves the hall. He can't even stay there anymore. You know, that was in December. I remember in February, John got word that his wife was now cozying up with this single guy in her new Kingdom Hall. They're not dating or whatever, but they're spending time together, going out in service together, and they're making those goo-goo eyes at each other. And John he's pissed again. He's saying, that's my wife. And he, I guess he realizes that his wife is planning to not be his wife very soon, since the divorce is almost complete. Well, John decides, he calls his lawyer on the phone and ends divorce proceedings. He said, reverse the whole thing. I want to stop everything in its tracks, cancel the court dates, we're not getting divorced. And so his lawyer follows through on that. Well, his wife is the one that is pissed. And she calls the elders, and the elders confront John about this. Donovan comes and talks to John and says, you can't do that. And he said, can't do what? He said, you've already began the divorce against your wife, and so now she is scripturally free to remarry. And he said, oh no, she's not. I am the innocent maid. I was the one who was wronged, and I have, on second thought, I have decided to forgive my wife, and I want to reestablish our family. I want her to come back, and it's, you know, as a JW man, I have that right. I insist my wife come back to me, and we start over again. I haven't compromised our marriage, and I'm willing to forgive her. And Donovan says, it's not going to work that way this time. And he says, why not? And Donovan looks up the scripture in the New Testament that talks about letting your yes mean yes and your no mean no. And Donovan says, you already said that you were going to divorce your wife, and so you have to let your yes mean yes now. And he said, well, I said that in the heat of the moment, and I've changed my mind and I don't mean it anymore. And Donovan says, well, you know, we have to go by the scripture. You may not like it, John, but this is by the book. Man, John just cannot seem to win or get anywhere with these people. So he loses another battle, and he just gives up at this point. Anyway, John, a few weeks later, he is at these people's house one evening. They're having a small get-together at their home, and he's talking to this guy named Dusty that goes to the hall nearby, and he said, John, I know you've had a rough year, man, especially with all that's gone down lately. I mean, I heard about that with you trying to stop the divorce proceedings and the elders telling you no. And John said, what did you say? Oh, I was just talking about, the whole divorcing thing and how the elders said you got to go through with it now. And John stands up and said, everyone leave the room, except you. Dusty and his wife were sitting there, and he said, you stay. I want you to tell me how you know this information, because I haven't said a word to anyone. I doubt you heard it from my wife. Who told you about the details of this divorce proceeding? And Dusty, he backpedals and he said, oh, well, I just heard it, through the grapevine. John says, I put you under oath from Jehovah right now to tell me how you know the specific details. And Dusty said, well, we were out in service with Donovan and Sheila. And John said, get your coats and get in my car. And they said, huh? I said, get your coats and get in my car right now. So they gather their things, they get in the car, and it's nighttime, it's 9:30 at night, but he starts driving, and he drives these people straight to Donovan's house. And he walks up, and he bangs on the door. Donovan answers and says, John, what are you doing here? And John says, I'm taking you down, Donovan. You see, those people in the car, those are the ones that you gossiped to yesterday. You revealed confidential information from a judicial process, something that will get you removed as an elder. And I just wanted to stop by and let you know that you're going down by the book. They're from Milwaukee. Milwaukee. So, excuse me, but I didn't really buy the big city routine that they were trying to do. I also came to discover that both of them had personality issues. I noticed this when I would be sharing stories and experiences with the service group, and after every experience that I shared, the husband, Donovan, had to one-up me. It was a personality tick he had. Every time I said something, he had to do me one better, and he would essentially copy the same experience, except he would change it into something that happened to him with a more favorable outcome. And it just worked out better for him. And I even the idea was that they had moved to the area because they wanted to serve where the need was greater. But to me, it didn't make sense because I said, well, we live in a suburb of Wichita, and our Kingdom Hall, we have 5 elders 3 ministerial servants and a congregation of 70 people. Our territory is worked every 2 years. Why are they here? Why don't they go, if they want to work where the need is great, why don't they go further west or further north? And they said, oh, well, the husband wouldn't be able to find work out there. And I said, oh, okay, but it just seems like it, I don't know, defeats the purpose. Anyway, well, following that, the next Saturday I was out in service, and sure enough, going to be working in a group. To change. We were going to enter into a new era, and it began one Sunday in which these two young married people showed up at our Kingdom Hall, and I had to, as soon as I saw them, I did not have a good feeling. I said, "Who's that?" And the person said, "Oh, that's a new couple. They're visiting from back east. They're thinking of serving where the need is great." And I said, "Oh, well, sure enough, a month later, it was announced that these people lived here now, and they were going to be in our congregation." Tested this out at one point, that the wife Sheila said, "Well, Tom, what do you do in your free time after you've served Jehovah, after you finish serving Jehovah for the day?" And I said, "Oh, well, my pride and joy is a mahjong table. I have a very beautiful mahjong table with carved ivory pieces." And Donovan immediately piped right up and said, "I also have a mahjong table." And Sheila said, "He does. It's splendorous. It's worth $1,500. Well, I don't have a mahjong table, and neither does Donovan. And that's the whole point of, that exercise. I just confirmed to myself that I confirmed my suspicion that he is a narcissistic maniac, and that he and his wife are compulsive liars. On this day, I group with these people, and I quickly found them to be very obnoxious. And I started seeing what their shtick was. This couple, their names was Donovan and Sheila. They're about 30 years old. And they fancied themselves metropolitan. I'm sure you've met some of these metropolitan witnesses that are kind of have that elite JW attitude. I remember we were out in service driving down the streets of our town, and they'd look at houses and say, "How quaint, how small town." And I came to see what their gimmick was, that they were going to be the big city JWs, and that we were the country mice, and we were all going to be impressed by them. But the thing was, they didn't come from LA or New York.